Assalamualaikum and peace be upon you. In this video, we are going over the topic of sampling design in social science research, part 1. Here is the outline of the presentation of the video, which will cover the definition of terms such as population, sampling frame or known as target population, sample, sampling and sampling design. This video will also cover the explanation of the elements that researchers look at to determine a sampling design and when they want to select a sample. This video will end with a conclusion. Let's have a quick recap on the processes of data collection before we proceed to the explanation of the definition of terms. There are 5 processes involved in data collection. The first one is to determine the participants to study. Second, to determine the types of information to collect. Third, to select or locate or construct research instruments. Fourth, to obtain permission for data collection. And the last one is to collect data either for instrument validation or actual study. What is a population? A population refers to a group of individuals who have the same characteristics. The size of a population is normally large. The measurable quality of population is known as parameters. As an example, all Malaysian teachers make up a population of teachers. Next, what is sampling frame? It is also known as target population. It refers to a group of individuals or organizations with some common defining characteristic that a researcher can identify and study. For example, in a study which involved a population of Malaysian teachers, a target population might be teachers who have education certification such as a diploma, degree, and such who have taught at schools for more than 5 years. In this case, those who without education certification and those who teach less than 5 years are not considered to be part of the population in this study. With a total number of more than 400,000 teachers in Malaysia, it will involve considerable budget, time and efforts if we select all teachers as our samples. Therefore, we scale down the population of teachers with certain characteristics that related to the issues that we want to study. Now, let's have a look at the definition of sample. Sample refers to a subgroup of the target population that a researcher plans to study for generalizing about the target population. Its measurable quality is known as statistic, in which the spelling is without the S. The size of a sample can be small or large, depending on the size of population. Let's say from a population of teachers who have taught more than 5 years at school, either at private or government schools, we have teachers with or without education background in Malaysia. In this case, we have 2 groups of sample. The first group is a sample who would be teachers who have education certification. The second group of sample would be teachers who do not have education certification. Both groups have taught more than 5 years at either government or private school. So, in a research, the target population could be teachers who have taught more than 5 years. But the sample which will be involved in the actual research could be only government school teachers who have taught more than 5 years, not those who teach at private school. We can further narrow down the characteristics of sample by choosing those with certification in education. With total number of more than 400,000 teachers in Malaysia, even if we have narrowed down the characteristic into those who teach at government schools with 5 years experience, plus only those with certification will be selected, the number of teachers who fit with those three characteristics could be more than 50,000. That is why a researcher needs to have a practical way to select a representative of teachers as sample in this case. That leads us to the next definition of term, which is sampling. What is sampling? Sampling involves the process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. In another word, it is the process of selecting units of people, organization, and such from a population of interest. It is also known as the methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed. What is sampling design? Sampling design is a technique used to select sample units for measurement. Different sampling design has different ways to select a sample from a population. There are two sampling designs. One, probability sampling, or known as randomized sampling. Second, non-probability sampling, or known as non-randomized sampling. Before we further discuss the types of sampling design, let's have a quick overview about things to be considered when choosing sampling design. In general, determining sampling design is based on the research issues or problems that we want to explore or investigate. It relates to the question of what are the issues or problems under study. Next, we have to look at who are the targeted people of the issue or problems under study. Meaning we are looking at who are the people that we are exploring the issue from. And this will lead us to the next point, which is the things need to be considered for selecting sample. When selecting sample in a research, there are three things need to be considered. First, consistency. It refers to the understanding of a population on a case-by-case basis. We need to test the sample for consistency before going ahead with a study. Second, diversity. A sample must be as diverse as the population itself and sensitive to the local differences that are unavoidable as we move across the population. Third, transparency. In reality, there are several constraints that dictate the size and structure of the population. Therefore, it is imperative that researchers discuss these limitations and maintain transparency about the procedures followed while selecting the sample. Before we end our video, part 1, let's have a quick recap on the things that we have covered so far. All elements from a set of data is known as population. And when one or more observations are drawn from a population, it is known as sample. Sampling refers to process of how a sample is selected from a population. And when choosing sampling design, it is basically based on the question of does the research aim to achieve a greater sense of generalizability? If the answer is yes, so it will lead us to the next question on the type of probability sampling design. So until then, in the next video, we're going to continue our discussion on the types of probability sampling design. There are 4 types of probability sampling design, which are simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Here are some of the references that we use to prepare the slide and video. The slides were prepared by my colleague, Dr Rohaya Talib, and I am Hadijah Jaffri, who are the narrator for this particular video.